Well, I'm not much of a diver. I'm more of a sit on the dock with a beer kind of guy, but I do know what the giant stride is. If you're not familiar with the giant stride, it's basically when the diver has on all their gear and they're ready to enter into the water, they take a deep breath and they take the plunge. Well, today I have before me a brand new watch from Second Hour Watches, and this is the Giant Stride. So the question for us today is, should you take the plunge on the Second Hour Giant Stride? Let's find out. So if you aren't familiar with Second Hour Watches is a newer micro brand out of Melbourne, Australia. So what up to all you folks over there in Australia? And they make some really intriguing micro brand watches. This is not their first attempt at a watch, but it is a watch that has been in the works since 2019. And for whatever reason, it is now reaching us in 2021. The ordering process went live at the end of October, and so now we are in November 2021, and you can order yours right now. This is the Giant Stride from Second Hour Watches. What I'd like to do is talk about the specifications, then I'm going to go into the pros and the cons, and then summarize my thoughts. Well, let's begin with specifications. The Giant Stride has, beating within its heart, a Sellita SW200 movement. This is a great entry-level Swiss movement. It's sort of the brother of the ETA 2824. You'll find it in Christopher Ward. You'll find it all over the place. And it is an excellent movement and a great choice for a watch at this price point, because let's be honest, you don't want an NH35 ticking away once you get over the $500 mark. The watch is made with 316L stainless steel, and it actually has a hardness coating on it that makes it 6 times more scratch resistant than stainless steel, which I think is a really cool move. That means that your watch is going to look great for years to come. So the case diameter on the Giant Stride is 42 millimeters, which you might think is a little on the bigger side these days, but wait until you hear about the rest of the specifications. For one thing, the lug to lug, looking at it, is just over 46 millimeters. Very wearable size on smaller wrists. And the thickness, although on their website they have it down as 13.2 millimeters, I'm only reading it as at 12.6 on my calipers. So it might be a 42 millimeter watch, but lug to lug, it's not that long and the thickness is not that thick. So I think at the end of the day, this is going to be a pretty wearable watch for just about anybody. The watch has Swiss Superluminova BGW9 on the hands, the inner bezel, and the indices. It has a domed sapphire crystal with 6 layers of anti-reflective coating on it. A bidirectional inner rotating bezel, as you would expect with a Compressor style watch. It's water resistant to 200 meters, which is fantastic. And it has a solid link screw pin bracelet with fully milled push button clasp and 4 micro adjustments. Now my version only has 3, but they are going to be upping that to 4. And I say you can't have too many micro adjusts. So they describe their dial, and I think this is a great way to put it, as a multi-textured matte finish, and I think that's a bit of an understatement. We'll look at that in the pros in a minute. It has Swiss grade diamond cut fully loomed hands, dual screw down crowns, which also, and this is a little party trick, have their own loom on them. The case back has an embossed image of a diver performing a Giant Stride entry, and so you'll get a great idea of what that looks like just by looking at the case back of this watch. And the warranty is a 2-year international warranty, which I think is fantastic for a watch of this price. You want to make sure that it's going to run for a good long while, work out any kinks before anything goes wrong, and 2 years is more than enough. I know I was speaking with Mark from Long Island Watch on Collection Conundrum this past weekend, and he said, I usually find that within 6 months, any issues with the watch become apparent. So I think 2 years is a great warranty for them to offer. Well, let's dive right in, pun intended, into the pros and the cons. Well, the first pro is this, the packaging. I love it when watch brands don't just give you a cardboard box that you'll throw in the closet, but this is actually a usable travel case, and it has a spot for 2 watches. So if you're the kind of person who goes away for the weekend and you can't just wear the watch on your wrist, you need to have a couple others tagging along, then this is perfect. It's got a lot of squish resistance, which is great if you are traveling and you're throwing it in your suitcase. And it's just a great looking design. So pro number 1 is the case. Pro number 2 is not just the packaging, but the lug design. I love the way they designed these lugs and the way the lugs integrate into the bracelet. Now, first of all, when you look at the bracelet, you'll see that it is a female end link, which is fantastic for those of us, again, with smaller wrists. For me, it doesn't really matter with an 8-inch wrist, but many of you are going to say 42 mils is too big. But when it's 46.5 millimeters with a female end link, then the watch just drops straight down and it will fit a smaller wrist. But what I like about it is the way that the lugs curve in, the way they're polished on both sides and then brushed on the top. They're just very interesting to look at. And if you check out the side profile, you'll see that they turn down very sharply. I think the bracelet is another pro on this. It's just a beautifully done, very simple H-link bracelet. There's nothing fussy about it. There's nothing crazy about it, but it's just so well done. Now, the bracelet is fully brushed and it starts at 20 millimeters and works its way down to 18 and then back up to around 21 millimeters at the clasp. I do wish, and this is giving it away, but I wish there was a diver's extension on this bad boy. Not for me necessarily, I'm not diving, but something like the Christopher Ward C65 with a sliding mechanism would be great for those of us whose wrists swell in the afternoon, and would be fantastic for those who want to wear it over a dive suit. The third pro I'd like to mention is the dial. And I think the dial is a real standout feature here with this watch. When you look at the dial, you see there is a lot going on. First of all, there is a sort of brick-like pattern running diagonally across the inner part of the watch where the printing is. And then there is a record sort of groove. I had that in my Hamilton field watch as well, going around the outside, which adds a lot of interest to it. The indices are applied and they're 3-dimensional and very dynamic. They really catch the light. So when you're looking at it, you're going to notice that the edges of the indices are going to catch the light and sort of sparkle a little bit, which on this gray version really works very well. I love that the date is at the 6 o'clock. Just love it when the date is at the 6 o'clock. It really seems to integrate itself into the dial. And this is a dial with a lot going on, so you don't want to add another element into that busyness. So the watch feels very balanced because of it. The indices are chunky and they're clear. Very interesting. The inner rotating bezel. Now, I love an inner rotating bezel. Why? Well, because then it's always aligned, especially in this one because of the screw down crown. So you unlock it, set it to where you want, screw it back down, and you know it's going to stay there. So no Seiko-esque off by 2 millimeters kind of rotating bezel situation going on here with this watch. I find the indices really interesting on that inner rotating bezel. And that's because some of them are only marked out with 3-minute intervals. So between the 10 and the 15, between the 15 and the 20, you'll see that only 3 minutes are marked. I mean, you're going to know what the time is without the marking, but it's an interesting design choice. What it does is it means that those large numbers at the 3 and the 6 and the 9 aren't feeling crowded. So again, they've incorporated a lot of design elements into the style, but yet they've somehow managed to keep it balanced and not make it feel overwhelming. And finally, the loom. The loom on this is fantastic. It lasts all night. I've had no problems with it. Now this is, I believe, a prototype, and so sometimes prototypes aren't as fully well applied as the production model. But if this is any indication of the production model and its quality of loom, it's going to be fantastic. But there's a neat little trick that the 2 crowns are also loomed. There is a triangle on the upper crown, which is for the rotating bezel, and there is the second hour logo on the other crown, which manipulates the timekeeping and the date. I just think that's a really great touch. I love that they did that. Well, let's address some of the cons on this watch, because no watch is perfect. And the first con for me really is the side profile. This is personal taste, but I'm not a big fan of brushing that goes up and down. I like a horizontal brushing on my watches. I feel like it makes them feel slimmer and sleeker, and vertical brushing, it rubs me the wrong way. But that is personal preference. You might absolutely love it. But the side profile is a little bit blocky. I did watch a review that said the final production version might have a little bit of a beveled edge on the underside. If that's true, I think that's great. Another con for me is the text on the dial. There's just a little bit too much going on here. I'd like to see second hour removed from the 12 o'clock position underneath the logo and just move the logo down. And I don't think the words Giant Stride need to be there. Personally, it just feels like there's too much going on. But if you look at their production shots, you'll see that they've actually made some changes. They have cleaned up the dial a little bit. And so is that still a negative if they've already fixed it for the production run? I don't know. And I've already mentioned the lack of a diver's extension. So really, I don't have a lot of beefs with this watch. This is a fantastic watch. The build quality is fantastic. So what are my final thoughts? What's the verdict on this watch? Should you take the plunge on the Giant Stride? Well, absolutely. If you like this watch, because there is a lot going on, so I think you have to like the design and you have to like the style. But if you like what you see, I don't think you're going to be disappointed. It has a quality movement, and there's 2 years of warranty if anything should arise. The manufacturing on this watch seems impeccable. It's well finished, well made, everything lines up, everything looks the way it should. I think this is just a really killer watch. When you throw in the hardness coating on top of it, so your watch is going to look great for a long time, I think you've got a real winner here. So really, it's up to you. Do you enjoy the design? Do you enjoy the style of this watch? Because if you do, and you've got the cash, I don't think you could go wrong. Well, I'd like to thank the folks over at Second Hour Watches for shipping this watch to me. I know the prices of shipping a watch to Canada are crazy. Now, this watch was loaned into the channel, and I will be passing it along to whomever requires it next. So thank you, Second Hour, for that. And a huge thanks to all of you for watching. I want to remind you that I do have a contest going on right now. It's a 1,500 subscriber giveaway of a really cool prize. And this is a full metal kit for your GA 2100, your Casio, if you have one at home. So all you have to do is go to my last video and answer the question. I can't tell you what to do because, and you're entered into the giveaway. And of course, like and subscribe and all of that. Well, again, thank you all for watching. And if you'd like to, please like and subscribe. But I can't tell you what to do because I'm not your dad.